Okay.
Great. Hi, everyone. Oh, sorry, Mokshitaa. This is like just the recording introduction. Hi, everyone. This is our first robotics panel, and it's by Team Taro and Andey.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about our individual FTC experiences as well as like collectively what you would do in a robotics tournament.
Hi, I'm Kavi. I'm a member of Team Taro, and I also did FLL during my middle school years.
Hi, I'm Sahana. I'm a member of Team Taro, and I'm excited to talk with you guys.
Hi, I'm Kaitlyn. I'm one of the other members of Team Taro, and I also did FLL.
And I'm Mokshi. I also did FTC last year and Tech Challenge the 2 previous years before that.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andey Ng. I'm currently a rising junior at Carnegie Mellon University. I've been involved with FIRST for the past almost 10 years now. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later, about how FIRST really got me into tech and how I'm here now. I've competed across FLL, which is First Lego League, and then as well as First Tech Challenge. And I made it up to the World Championships in the semifinals multiple years, I think 2 or 3 years within the past couple years. So I'm a huge FIRST enthusiast, so I'd love to talk to you guys about it a little bit more.
Great. So some of the members that you just seen here were from Team Taro. So we are First Tech Challenge Team 13218. And this upcoming season will be our 2nd year. Last season, we won 3rd place in Spire and 2nd place Collins Aerospace. And it was our 1st year, so we were in our rookie. We were a rookie team last year. Currently, we consist of 7 members from Santa Clara High School, and we're all part of the 49ers STEM Leadership Institute. And they are also our largest sponsor.
So first, we're going to go over all the different FIRST programs from FLL to FRC. FLL is First Lego League, which is a Lego robotics competition, and it's for, I think, ages from 9 to 13, and it's smaller teams of 4 to 6 people, and the whole competition revolves around Legos, and it's on this mat with all these fields and missions related to the overall theme, and everything's made out of Legos. FTC is for I think it's middle school and upper middle school and high schoolers, and it's a larger scale, and everything is made out of actual robotic parts, and it's the teams are a lot larger to up to I think 15 people, and then FRC is even a larger grand scale where everything is the teams are I think 20 to 40 people large, and I've never competed in FRC, so I don't really know anything a lot about it, but it's basically, I guess, FTC, but even larger. The robots are larger, the teams are larger, and then I guess the whole fundraising is also larger.
So, I'm not muted. Oh, I'm okay. Sorry. So First Tech Challenge is the competition that Team Taro participates in. This will be our 2nd year participating in First Tech Challenge. So for First Tech Challenge, you have teams of up to 15 members, grades 7 to 12, and you have to design, build, program, and operate robots, and then you compete in a challenge in alliance format, although this year, because of COVID-19, things are going to look slightly differently. So we have a couple of mentors and a coach, and so we get to practice STEM and engineering principles throughout the season, and at the end of the season we get to compete at multiple competitions and advance to higher level competitions. So each teams design and build robots, raise funds, design and market their team brand, and also do community outreach to do specific awards. And participants are eligible to apply for $80 million in college sponsorships.
So first, we're going to talk about outreach, which is one of the key parts of FTC. You can't let outreach be overshadowed by the actual robot part of the competition, since you can win many awards related to outreach at competition. The main goals of outreach are to spread STEM, robotics, and FIRST in your community and around the world, to make an impact as your team, to help your community, and to hopefully make up for the fact that maybe your robot isn't working.
So some general ideas for outreach events. Workshops are a great way to partake in your community. Attending or volunteering at community events are another way. You should also work with other organizations and nonprofits. So throughout our experience, we got in touch with a couple of organizations who we did workshops with. Social media is also a really great place to market those opportunities that you guys are hosting, and a great way to get the word out. So Instagram is a great way, Facebook, LinkedIn, a lot of Slack groups too, and also look at current events.
Here are just a couple of photos from outreach events from the past year. If you guys want to talk about some of them.
So in the first picture, we're hosting a hot chocolate fundraiser. So I think we got around $50 to $60 from that. It was a great way to interact with our high school, and it was also a great way to earn some money.
The second picture is a picture of one of our STEM workshops we held with a nonprofit called Design Your Careers, and they helped provide a space for us to host these workshops for elementary school students. And we hosted 4 workshop sessions around science, technology, engineering, and math. And the third picture is when we went to the 49ers STEM leadership lab at the Korea Middle School, and we helped mentor a bunch of FLL teams there, since most of our team members had competed in FLL. So we were able to give our insight and hold a question and answer session about anything they had about FLL, since it was their rookie year.
So for software, you can use Java, Kotlin, or basic block programming. For Java and Kotlin, you'd use Android Studio to program the robot. Also for the software aspect, there's both a autonomous and then remote controlled autonomous and teleop sections. So for the autonomous, the robot has to move completely on its own to complete a series of challenges, and then for teleop, you have 2 drivers who will control the robot to complete other challenges.
And considering hardware, I think the biggest step up from FLL to FTC is the hardware aspect of it all, because in FLL you're using Legos to complete your robot and make it do what you want it to do and build all the components. But in FTC and FRC, you're using Tetris parts and metal components that you have to fundraise and buy yourself, like the kit and everything, the starter kit that you would use for your FTC competition. And not only that, but it also includes CAD, which is a software program where you can 3D design your robot design beforehand before actually building it. So you're sure of what parts would fit together well and the dimensions and all before you actually just start building it. Because when you're first starting out with hardware, I learned last year that it's not the easiest, because there's no guides to teach you to build the perfect robot. There's always ups and downs, and you have to persist and keep trying over and over again to figure out what works for you and your team, and what parts fit well together, and how you just put it all together. It's hard. And I mean, yes, there's manuals online and steps to get there to learn how to do it on your own, but in the end, to produce your idea and make it real from paper to your metal components, it's hard and it takes a lot of time. But the very important tip is to not ever give up when you're working on hardware, because you can always get help from your peers and mentors, and the more you work on it, the better you get at it. Like, practice does make perfect in FTC. There's also the technical journal aspect of it all, where you write and sketch out all your ideas and log every single idea and component and part you're using in your robot. And that's also very crucial during your FTC experience, because it handles all your sketches and diagrams, and you list your design process out for your judges to see, and working on this and iterating it is really important because the judges get to see your thought process and can judge your team even more based on the technical journal.
So the first image is from one of our competitions, and the second one's a workshop that a senior team, Deja Vu, hosted for us to work on both software and hardware skills. And the last one is one of our team members working on the robot.
Sorry, I'm just gonna intersect. I think we're getting Zoom bombed, so that's like, yeah, sorry, please continue.
Okay.
Oh,
Kavi,
wait.
would you like to start?
Yeah. So my experience with FIRST has been, I think, really impactful. In FLL, it was like a really great, like, I think, eye-opening thing that I've not done before. And it was the first time that I really interacted with the team. So I had some pretty great experiences in FLL, even though they're like really just beginner stuff. And when I went to FTC, it was really, like, it was different.
Oh, hi, thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Sorry, I think we're getting Zoom
Soap
bombed.
tips, things you can do with soap, or ways to use soap. Buy soap, get it from the store, or just rent it. Take it home. Wash your house. Invite some friends over.
Okay, I deleted that person. Anyway, so when I went to FTC, it was different because I was dealing with a different group of people that I haven't dealt with before.
Kavi, there's someone connecting to audio that has a very sketchy looking name.
I know. Like, they're not connected to audio, so they can't hear. Okay, I removed them anyway.
1 second. They're not. They haven't.
Why don't you guys just continue? Don't worry.
Okay. Anyway, so when I went to FTC, it was different because I didn't really deal with like an 11-person team before. So I learned a lot of like communication and soft skills and how to deal with people. I didn't really learn more like technical wise as I wish I could have done, but FTC was a great way for me to interact with like more people on a larger scale. Yeah. Kaitlyn, if you want to add on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like for FLL, I feel like it was like the first time I really got to, I guess, work with the team collaboratively, since in like, I feel like in elementary everything's very individual, and FLL, it was really the only, like the biggest chance I've had to work in a team and compete in these like large scale projects. At the beginning, I wasn't really that fond of FLL. I joined it because of a different reason, but I honestly really grew to love it since I was able to work with my friends and build these amazing projects, and we got to get to know each other really well, and it was just a really enjoyable experience. So I was really looking forward to FTC. I think FTC is definitely a large change from FLL, and that you know, obviously the teams are larger and everything's a larger grand scale, so that I definitely think that there was a lot to learn going into your rookie team, like rookie year as someone in FTC. But I think that throughout all like the first programs, that's how I really like matured and evolved as a person, since there are so many events and I guess just opportunities that you don't really get anywhere else.
Sahana, if you want to go.
I agree a lot with what Kaitlyn and Kavi were talking about. Overall, FTC has been a series of ups and downs. Like for FLL, it wasn't the best experience for me, but I definitely enjoyed FTC a lot more last year. But I think the main part is I learned a lot about working with people and also gained a lot of skills along the way. There's always going to be people that are harder to deal with, and I think through these experiences, it's helped me understand how to work with people better and be part of a team. And I've also really enjoyed the outreach events that we've done over the last year, and planning this hackathon with some of my teammates. So I'll pass it on to Mokshi.
Thanks. So my experience was really different from Kavi, Kaitlyn, and Sahana's because I didn't do FLL in middle school. I did the tech challenge at the tech museum. and that's mostly just hardware, and there's not much coding involved, and those challenges really fostered my love for hardware. So when I joined FTC, it was a huge step up for me because I wasn't using these cardboard components anymore or motors. I was using real life Tetrix parts. And so my first year in FTC was a huge experience for me, and I enjoyed getting to know everyone on my team because I knew these people. They were my friends. They were my really good friends from like 3 years ago. And so our team chemistry was great, and I didn't really have a problem in that aspect. But what I did struggle with last year was the productivity. So since we were such good friends, we always tended to like goof off, and it's just unexpected. You know, you're working in 1 minute, and then the next minute you're like making a joke, and then it turns into less productivity. So that was one thing I really struggled with, and it helped me realize that when you're working on a professional team, you can't just all be best of friends because you're not going to get that much work done. The friendship should be there, but there should also be a line that you draw between work and fun. And that helped me realize that FTC it's so much more than just hardware and software and outreach. It's also building this great team chemistry and having this bond that allows you to succeed in robotics competitions.
Hi, everybody. So I'll talk a little bit about my first experience now. Like I said, I've been involved for a very long time through participating and mentoring. And so I started off in FLL when I was in 6th grade. So I think in about 2012, quite a long time ago. And during that time, I really learned how to use robotics. So we use these kits called EV3. NXT EV3, it's the Lego robotics set that is provided. And so it's simply moving one step forward from putting Legos together to actually making the move and programming it. And that really got me involved in not only robotics, but also like the idea of the world of tech and how to teach it. Like they said, outreach was one of the best parts of it. When I moved on in high school to FIRST, like FTC, to the high school competitions, I competed on a group of 10 people on a very competitive team. I had to interview against 50 people for one spot. It was actually insane. But like seeing such a large competition was amazing because I got to compete worldwide up into the World Championships, where we met people from literally around the world. There were teams from like Jamaica, Israel, China, India, you name it. But it was really cool to interact with people from around the world. So this was the first time I ever got to travel without my parents, which is great. As a 16-year-old, so I got to go to St. Louis to compete there. I also competed in Houston, in Texas. But it was a really interesting experience because a lot of the people I met there, I honestly have like lifelong friends from like around the world that I still keep in touch with. So it's really great to create that first community as well. I'd say in high school, I've spent over 400 hours per year in robotics. I worked on outreach mainly and also the hardware part of it. But every person on my team spent about 400 hours, so equated to about 4,000 hours. It was more intense than, it was the most intense experience I've ever had. Even right now, I'm interning at Yahoo. I think it's nothing compared to what I've gone through in FIRST. Learning to work with different types of people. Also, teaching FIRST, mentoring has really like allowed me to create tech as a platform of entrepreneurship. So teaching tech and writing curriculum, selling it, teaching other people and tutoring it. But also tech has been a platform for me to reach out to people around my communities. So different groups of people. I started teaching robotics at learning centers for those who are like accelerated, special education centers, senior homes, homeless shelters, and it really branched out my ability to like interact with people in my community. So being a FIRST advocate, I'd host library events every other week. I think I hosted about 50 events per year when I was in high school. And that really taught me how to talk to more people in a more professional setting about something I'm very passionate about that has been very influential on me, and share my excitement about just tech in general. And so that kind of led me to where I am right now at Carnegie Mellon University. It's a tech school, one of the #1 leaders in AI. And like, because I was involved in this whole realm of technology, but also really FIRST, it brought me to where I am right now, doing research, internships, all these things, really learning more in-depth knowledge about like this whole world of technology, robotics, AI, machine learning, all the buzzwords that you hear these days.
I think we can all just like kind of like chime in. I think this kind of relates to our experiences too. But you should definitely join FIRST if you're looking to kind of see like what it's like to be in a team, and especially if you haven't experienced working in a team before, because you might be dealing with a larger team, and you have to balance things that we like talked about before in the presentation, like productivity, having a good team chemistry, like team issues and battles. Yeah, if any of you guys also want to add on to that.
Yeah, I'd say I've been placed in very difficult situations where I've had to make a lot of decisions. Really formed me as a leader, as a student, learning how to deal with difficult situations, other people's parents, parents in general, learning how to deal with like judges, how to talk, and do things in a more professional setting, for sure. Learning how to work it's a very high intensive competition. You can imagine 4,000 hours per year for 10 people. So everyone enters, puts about 10 to 20 hours per week. It's almost a part-time job. So everyone is very invested in this competition. And so that can create a lot of emotions. So learning how to deal with that. It's definitely been very inspiring, and there are hard times, but there's nothing been more formative than this. You can also open up the floor to anyone who wants to unmute and ask questions.
I think we'll just have this lead directly into kind of a Q&A session. So I'll stop screen sharing here.
There's a question from Peter Hahn. How did you manage your time with FTC being such a huge commitment? Let me just tell you, it was a huge commitment. It was one of, I think it was, I remember when I was in high school, this team was very intense that I was on. So I spent about the people who are on the hardware team that are dedicated to hardware, we all have emphasis and we all work on everything to get that well-rounded experience, but they'd work from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day, Monday to Thursday. Friday nights, I'd see them come in from 3 to 7 p.m. They go home for dinner and come back till 2 a.m. After dinner to work on it. It was a lot. I don't necessarily recommend that, but we spent a lot of time on the weekends. It turned into a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun bonding. We go get boba after we're done with one of our benchmarks, but I'd say like it really taught me time commitment on like where you should be putting your time. So planning, like what is our short-term goal of for the first competition? How do we plan for that? How can we plan for long-term when we go all the way up to the World Championships, which is making the season a year-long process? How can we take steps to be competitive, but also learn a lot and help others a lot along the way? I guess I still did other extracurriculars like marching band. I volunteered. I tutored still. So it's definitely there. Having a good team with dedicated members is really crucial to time commitment.
I want to add on to what Andy was talking about. Definitely, all the members have to be dedicated and spending time on to help the team as a whole. because last year as a rookie team, we definitely learned a lot about that, and we improved a little bit by like each competition that we went to, but we still kind of sucked at time management a lot, especially as we got closer to the competition, then we'd kind of be rushing to trying to finish things. But hopefully this upcoming season, we'll learn from what the mistakes we made last season and better manage our time. If anyone else wants to add on to that.
I was just gonna say that I think it's definitely important to have like a whole schedule for your team and like work around for everyone to fit everyone's schedule. For us, we did like a whole chart and like kind of like picked meeting times that worked for most people, and then we also I guess the other thing I would say about time management is just to plan for a lot of failures and everything to go wrong. I mean, for us, like, I think like our robot literally broke on the day of competition. So there's always things you have to like plan for, and just to, I guess it's also like an experience thing, because like you can always plan to manage your time well, but you don't really know how everything works until it actually happens. So I guess it's just like from experience mostly.
I'd also say to Anna's question about how would you use first skills in real life. That's just one. What Kaitlyn just talked about was a classic situation. Things never go as planned, even with this whole COVID situation, right? But there's a saying: life is what 10% what's thrown at you and 90% how you react. So like learning how to react dynamically is really important. Having a good attitude, it's really telling of your character, and really shapes you. Whether you decide to cry over your robot not working that you spent hundreds and hundreds of hours on, whether you decide to take it well, that's on you, but it's like a lot to be learned about.
I think we can answer Lori's question. How much initiative and guts did it take to find new learning service opportunities, like volunteering at those events? I think
I can talk about that. I spearheaded the outreach on my team, so I spent 400 hours. I think 300 to 400 of the hours that I spent every year was on outreach. I love talking to people. I love talking about what I'm very passionate about, and it was robotics. It was about this formative experience. And so I really enjoyed reaching out. Initiative-wise, I cold called over 100 places every year. So I reached out to every, I'm from Alameda County. I live in Fremont. So I reached out to every single library in Alameda County. I started thinking about like what groups of people could I teach to that were very different, that maybe didn't have access to robotics. Minority groups, but also like people who wouldn't have known about it. So I reached out to different homeless shelters in the ones that were very under-resourced throughout the Bay Area in general. So we drove pretty far. We did ones locally. So we did ones every week, but looking at how can you expand that. One thing will lead to another, but that's what networking helps. Talking to a lot of people, saying like, oh, what would you do if you were in this situation? So a lot of it is you have to take initiative on your own for these service opportunities, but those were the most informative because that's where I learned a lot about like the people around me. I think that's really what matters, in my opinion.
Yeah. To add on to that, we had to reach out and email, like send cold emails and call a bunch of people to be able to plan these things. But I think it's just the passion and the drive that you have that'll lead you to want to do, to volunteer at places and to run these kinds of events. I don't know.
I'd also say that, I'd also say that every place that you reach out to, you can expect them to probably not email you back. Calling always helps, but more importantly, in-person experiences. So I went to a lot of like outreach, like children's programs, and I planned with their coordinators. So those in-person experiences where we first set up a meeting and then we actually do the outreach and execute it and plan it out. How can we spread out the amount of outreaches? So every other Saturday we had hosted over, every event we hosted had 100 to 200 people, parents and kids. So how can we manage that time? Yeah.
I think there's a really good question about like, how do you deal with team members who work less hard than others and like conflict and stuff? I think that Kaitlyn, Sahana, and I, we really faced a lot of like conflict issues in our first team. In our first stage of Team Taro, which was like last year, we had like a lot of people, not a lot, we had like a couple of people who weren't really like the best at social interaction and who were really the best at working in teams. And that's really understandable because it's like your first time working with such a huge team. And normally like it's kind of like an instinct to want to like do things by yourself and individually. So working like collaboratively with like a big group, especially if your team is really big, is really hard. But it's kind of like a skill that you learn like as you go on. And there's also a question about like how you split up
can
work.
I add on to the group conflict question? Okay, sorry, but I didn't really on my FTC team last year, syntax error, we didn't have that many group conflicts, but when we did, we came up with this silly idea of a money jar. So whenever someone would say something like a bad comment or something rude or would yell at someone for no reason, we would have to put in a designated amount into the money jar, and those proceeds would go towards like fundraising or like robots. And even though it was like a very little amount of money that we collected at the end, it still really helped with our conflicts because it was kind of a motivational way to work out your conflicts rather than just keep arguing about them. And when we did have conflicts, we would talk them out reasonably and allow both sides to say their piece, and often we would come to we would resolve the conflict. I can't think of the word I was going to say.
Yeah, I'd also say something that's really important, I think, just throughout anything you do. So threatening is not good. Threatening to cut people is not good. We tried all the above. I was on a team where parent involvement was not a thing. We prevented parent involvement, and that's where you really learn about leadership, how you learn to deal with these things. Because let's just say when you're 20, when you're 30, your mom and dad can't step in anymore. But so really practicing that. I think that's the number one step. Number two is, so something that we did try was we said every time you're late, every time you start slacking, let's just say that, we had a spreadsheet where we said, we started tallying like, you haven't put in 10 hours this week. We're going to have to add on more hours next week for you otherwise. And that was actually very unproductive. I do not recommend that. Threatening is never good. Because then you're now in this like, oh my gosh, I have to go do my 10 hours or else I'm going to have 15 next week. I think that's super unhealthy. Something that you should do is, it's a term in psychology, but look for your intrinsic motivation. Why are they really here? If they don't want to be here, don't ask them to be here. Sometimes having too many cooks in the kitchen is not good either. So having everyone say, okay, like remind them like, why are you here? Are you here to win? That's okay if you're here to win. Are you here to get that title because it'll help you get into colleges? Are you here because you want to learn about robots, software engineering, software, hardware, building, how to CAD? By the way, earlier I think you guys didn't mention, but CAD is like computer aided design. It's a type of design process. It's really informative and it helps you 3D print. So are you here for what reason, right? Really reminding people why they're here is really important. And then talking about like, how can you get what you want, but help the team progress as well. I think that's the most important part. Because in order for you guys to be a really productive team, you really need to have that internal motivation, not an external, like, I don't want to be threatened by parents or feeling bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with what Andy said, 100%. I think we can answer Mia's question. Oh wait, sorry. Peter's question about how do you spread the work among the entire team. does one sub-team have to make a bigger commitment than some others? I think I can start with answering that question. Sorry for the background noise if there's any. I definitely feel like some members do end up working harder than others, but you have to everybody has to try to take initiative to work on everything and to make an impact on the team and put as much into the team and into the season as everyone else. If anyone else wants to add on to that, I don't think my answer was good.
I think,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So the way my team did it, I've been on multiple teams, multiple leaderships, and being a team member, and I was working with people who are 2-3 years older than me, also people who are younger than me, and looking at that commitment, we always had team leads. So in the 4 sections that Team Taro mentioned earlier, there is hardware, software, hardware, software, outreach, and documentation, like the technical journal. And those 4 aspects are very important for to win, but also in general to learn. And so we distributed it based off of who has the most passion in which areas. And at the end of the day, everyone should get a chance to do everything. There's a saying, jack of all trades is master of none. Sometimes beats the master of one. So how can you balance master of one versus jack of all trades, right? And so what we did was we spread out our team, saying that, like, okay, in a team of 10 people, we're going to have people who are designated. So I was designated outreach. Some people were designated in hardware, software, leading it. So I planned a lot of the events, heavy lifting, writing curriculum. I really love cold calling and reaching out to people and like talking to strangers. It was very fun. But we said, okay, these are important life skills. So how can we have everyone do this? So we said it's mandatory for everyone to come to all the large outreaches. So our 100 to 200 people events, everyone needs to come. And everyone needs to interact and gets that chance to learn. Everyone is also going to work on the robot, no matter what, even if you're working on outreach, even if you're working on the documentation, like the technical journal. So everyone would still build one part. So when we build the robot, there's the drivetrain, the part that drives. There's also, like, let's just say the part that shoots, the part that does different things, right? Everyone's still going to build and gets that chance. So we designate different features and components of the robot, and we say, okay, you're going to be building like the sidewalls. And so I still got a chance to learn what the building process looked like as well. So I spent 100 hours building, even though I spent 300 hours in outreach. So having leads to really go further and take us to the next step and dedicate that time is important on every side, but everyone should be learning. You really need to remind yourself in this whole process, are you here to win? Are you here to learn? And how can you balance that process?
I think another question that we haven't talked about yet was, how did you get into robotics in the first place?
Yeah, I first want to answer Mia's question. She asked how often would the team meet? It depends. So having everyone and how do we relax and take breaks, things like that. What I found most productive was when not everyone was there at the same time. I actually didn't go to the same school as my team. And so I couldn't go in after schools because my parents couldn't drive me at 3 p.m. But I came in at nights on Friday nights and then Saturdays and Sundays. And I came in with a robot, like a partner. So we kept each other accountable, number one, to get that part. We were working on like the sidewalls, for example. So it's not about, it's very Silicon Valley culture, but it's not about like how many hours you put in. It's about how much work you get done. It's not like a 9 to 5, it's a 9 to whenever you finish. So if you finish within 2 hours, that's great. If you finish 10 hours later, that's also great, but just get the work done. How much time? Oh, we went on boba breaks all the time. Every time we go to robotics, I would go, a lot of us could drive. So afterwards we'd go get some milk tea, we'd go get whatever, Taco Bell after, afterwards, but we do take a lot of breaks. A lot of it is fun. We're not working 24/7. A lot of it is spending quality time together to also create that bond. But I'd say meeting all together, we would meet all together for outreaches, and we meet all together when we have reflections. But other than that, everyone comes in as they please throughout the week, and just making sure that they get the work done. They can come in at like 2 a.m. maybe if they really wanted, if the robotics house was open, things like that. Yeah.
I think our team, like the way that we kind of worked is that like for the very first few months, like we didn't really do anything. And then like it's like nature, I guess, but as competition like comes sooner, you start to like work more. And then like the day before competition or like the 2 days before competition is like a sprint. So you're finishing like 25% of like the whole thing, like in like 2 day span, which is like what our team did. So we would like have like all-nighters, and we would like finish like the board, like the presentation, and like making everything nice, which is understandable, but try to like not have that as like something that you are supposed to do, because you're supposed to kind of like finish all those things the week before, and that's what people are taught to. But if it's like your first year and you're finding yourself in like an all-nighter before the competition, that's fine, but it's also bad because you're gonna show up really tired to comp, unless you like fuel up with like caffeine or whatever. But just like remember that you have to like abide by like a good schedule, and try to finish everything like before like a week in advance, so you have everything down.
Yeah, I suggest you avoid the finishing everything in 2 days. You have you have a couple of months before your first competition, so try to learn to spread your time out and find a good balance between work time and break time during your team meetings. Well, how our meetings were, it was similar to what Andy was talking about. We'd work for the most time, and then we'd have like a team bonding thing where we just hang out for a little bit afterwards. Also, for most of our sub teams, we'd meet individually. So hardware would meet on their own, and software would meet on their own. And then at a few team meetings, we'd work together. And also, all of our team showed up to most of our outreach events, or most of our team did. So we tried to. You're splitting your time up with what makes the most sense and what's most convenient for everyone, if that makes sense.
Can I say something regarding picking competitions? So if you're doing FTC, you will get to pick the date of the competition you want to perform at. And I don't think you guys should pick earliest, or you should pick whatever you feel comfortable with, or whatever your team thinks they can do before the competition starts, because picking the earliest competition doesn't necessarily give you a win. Even though there are less people that will be at the competition and less teams and less developed robots, it doesn't mean that you will necessarily have the best robot by then, because like everyone said in the presentation, working on the robot takes so much effort, and so you should pick a competition date that your team feels most comfortable with, because if you do put enough effort and work and time into your robot, then picking a later competition date should not be a problem at all when you're competing.
I think we can answer the last question. How did you get into robotics, and then wrap this up?
Yeah. Also, if people have questions, you guys can feel free to Slack me. This is something I care a lot about. It's been a really great experience. So you guys can Slack me. I'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one chat with people throughout this week, or group chat, whatever works. How do we get into robotics? I heard from, this is Silicon Valley, so everyone does it. But I heard about it through my cousin, who was like, hey, I heard this is FLL, like working with Legos. I heard there's a competition. You want to try it out? And it turned out to be really fun. And I found out there's this whole community that exists. It's a huge community, especially in the Bay Area. Competing in the Bay Area is very difficult. It's more difficult, I think, in the Bay Area because it's Silicon Valley. It's more competitive than the rest of the world, for sure, to get to advance. So I wouldn't be discouraged either. But I was just always interested in Legos. So, and then it led me to FLL, which led me to the whole competition.
I think for us four, we are really fortunate enough to be surrounded by the Silicon Valley, and for the fact that we're part of the 49ers STEM Leadership Institute that gives us all these opportunities to compete in all these robotics competitions. But I think that even if you aren't, I guess, as lucky to be part of a program that really encourages for you to compete, if you have the like motivation and drive within yourself, there you can probably find other people around your community that you can start a team with.
Well, I'm gonna be like really honest. Like our program offered like another choice, which was like Explore Vision. That was like writing and research, and I thought that wasn't really legit. So I just kind of picked FLL because I wasn't really interested in writing. So when I went to FLL, I didn't really know what to expect because I wasn't always like a Lego person, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I actually really recommend it if you are thinking about doing it and you're not sure about doing it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'd like to say that Explore Vision is legit. I know you probably preferred FL, but Explore Vision is definitely a legit competition and where you have to write a report and everything, so don't listen to Kavi.
We have a question from Rita. One more question. What advice do you have for people doing FTC for the first time with others who have already done it for a year? Be very active and say like, hey guys, I have no experience. That's what I did. I had no experience with this FTC team that I joined because they already went to the World Championships and I had never competed in FTC before. And so I was very honest. I said, I don't know what to do, especially because everyone was 2 years older than me. I said, I'd love to learn. I will put in all the effort. I will put in double the amount of time if that's what it takes to get to the level of competency and level of understanding and skills that you guys have gotten. So you really just need to be very excited, very passionate, very willing to put in the time. It takes in time, no matter any skill you learn, no matter what it is, you need to practice it. And so be very proactive and say, I would love to join. How can I get involved? How can I get more information? How can I learn on my own? How can you help me? Things like that, and really follow through with it. I'd say that's definitely really important. To Mia's question, when did you first know what you wanted to study in college and go into your career? I'd say I'm currently majoring in information systems. I have a double in technology and public policy. I might pursue that actually as a master's now. I have no clue what I'm doing. And I don't think a lot of people really do, even when they're in college, everything changes. So keeping an open mind. I think if you guys are all from Silicon Valley, which tends to be the demographics in this hackathon, don't feel pressure to go into tech either. There's this whole tech hype train that people are getting themselves into because that's what their parents do, that's what their friends are going to do, that's what's talked about here. I'd say like really think about what you want to do and don't feel that pressure. I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys about it afterwards on the sideline. What is information systems? It's basically, and who tells you about the different college majors? The people in FIRST, actually. I was like really passionate. I was like, yes, I really love this. And so people were like, Carnegie Mellon, best school to get into for tech. And it's right up there with MIT and Stanford. And I said, okay, I guess I'll apply. And I happened to get in, very fortunate. And FIRST really did help. Who told me about different majors? I did some Googling. I had a college counselor, but really at the end of the day, I was like, I think I want to do tech, but I think I care more about like working with people, talking to people from around the world, understanding how it affects communities, society, and as a whole. So now I'm kind of shifting out of this whole software engineering job of constantly coding every day to looking more of like the social implications of technology. And so tech is a huge field. It's not just like you're going to be coding every day. It's not just hackathons all day long. It's a large aspect of it. And information systems, it's basically the applications of technology. How can you lay out information? So I've done a lot of research in computer vision, educational technologies. There's educational technology. There's biotech, looking at like how can we do help people with cancer. There's a lot of different types of research. So tech is a huge field. I'd say don't just feel pressure to do it. Because at a lot of points I felt that especially being in FIRST in this whole community of robotics, sometimes I was like, I was destined to do this. Life is long. Let's just say that. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that to consider. The ethics of it all. Facebook's on fire right now. Let's just be very honest. So like, there's a lot of politics that gets into it. Very interesting. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about it a little bit more if you guys had other questions about it. I think we're wrapping up in the last 5 minutes. So if anyone has any other questions, go ahead. Go ahead and Slack me as well.
I think we can wrap this up here and then end the recording, and then we can continue afterwards because I think it's been an hour.